At that time, Pharisees came up to Jesus and tested him by asking, "Is it lawful to divorce one's wife for any cause?" He answered, "Have you not read that he who created them from the beginning made them male and female from the beginning? Therefore, a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let not man separate." They said to him, "Why then did Moses command one to give a certificate of divorce and to send her away?" He said to them, "Because of your hardness of heart, Moses allowed you to divorce your wives, but from the beginning it was not so. And I say to you, whoever divorces his wife except for sexual immorality and marries another commits adultery." The disciples said to him, "If such is the case of a man with his wife, it is better not to marry." But he said to them, "Not everyone can receive this saying, but only those to whom it is given. For there are eunuchs who have been so from birth, and there are eunuchs who have been made eunuchs by men, and there are eunuchs who have made themselves eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. Let the one who is able to receive it, receive it." The Gospel of the Lord. My dear brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, it is a beautiful coincidence that in today's Gospel passage we have a reference to Jesus' teaching on marriage and also the teaching on the evangelical counsel of celibate chastity which the religious profess. And the saint of today, Saint Jane Frances de Chantal, had the beautiful gift of receiving both these vocations in her life. She first started out as a married woman, and she had a very tumultuous time in her married life, but because of her Christian convictions, she stood by her husband and her children until her husband later on passed away and she settled her children. Then she knew that she wanted to join the religious life. Jesus puts his teaching on marriage and sexuality basically in response to a question by the Pharisees and scribes who had by then begun to justify divorce. And very much like our societies in our times, divorce is such a common thing. And part of the problem is that young people have not been sufficiently formed for marriage. They haven't been exposed to good and happy marriages in their life. And very often, young people have a very negative view on married life. But Jesus does not begin his teaching from the way that things are, but he points people to how things were in the beginning in the plan of God, according to the book of Genesis. And moreover, while society looks at marriage as a practical arrangement, maybe to make sure that family property stays within the family, or as a way in which justice is done in terms of sexual rights, the Lord points to the fact that marriage is a vocation from God, a calling from God. And without God, it is not possible. How often do young people approach marriage as a spiritual vocation, something that they need to dialogue with God about? That God has to play a role in their discernment of their choice of marriage partner. On the other extreme, even if a young person has this attitude, society and family puts pressure on young people to get married just because they have attained a certain age. But then this prevents the young person from experiencing marriage as a vocation that they freely choose. They sometimes may feel forced into a marriage, and when there is no freedom, the Catholic Church does not respect those kinds of false promises made before the altar. And that is usually the grounds on which the Church gives an annulment. When the apostles are shocked at Jesus's standards for marital life, then he says that for God this is possible. That when we respond to God and we make God the center of our love in marital life, the fidelity called for in married life becomes possible. And the teaching on religious life is connected to the teaching on marriage. For religious give up marriage not because it is something evil or something lesser, but precisely because they want to acknowledge the love that is the source of all human love, which is true and pure and holy, as God Himself. And because they have discovered Christ as their highest treasure, they decide to give up this great good of human life in order to point out to the heavenly life where there will be no marriage, where no one will be given in marriage and no one will marry, as Jesus puts it. As we come to the Eucharistic table, we are painfully aware that it is not easy to be faithful to our vocations, whether it is married life or religious life. We all need God's grace. And so, as we come to the Lord in this Eucharist, in spiritual communion, let us ask the Lord for the grace to be joyfully faithful to our vocations.